Hello friends, how are you all today? Have you ever wondered what embedded systems are and how they are being used in the current technology? It's coming up right now. I'm Prashant. I'm a technical trainer and freelancer in Dharani Academy of Technical Education, Bengaluru. We'll start with the concepts of embedded systems now.
In the previous class, we discussed elements of embedded systems, right? In that, we saw that there is what is called as a CPU at the center, which is connected with many of I/O devices, memory, softwares, auxiliary systems, and several ports. Each one have its own work, right? Sensor is going to send some physical or environmental variables. It's going to be converted into the digital format by using an ADC. Whereas if the computer wants to give some output, right, to an actuator, it is going to use a DAC. Alright, so digital to analog converter, analog output is given to the actuator like voltage, current, something that will be used by the actuator to make changes. Alright, if a user wants to have access to the embedded system, right, the user is going to use the GUI or the user interface. Normally it will be a graphics oriented, right? So that there are some buttons so that the user can press it, right? User can enter some variables, values, etc. So there is a software to control the user side as well as the hardware side. There is a memory to store and retrieve the data whenever required, and whenever there is a requirement of diagnostic, right, there is a port dedicated for that, and some auxiliary systems. This was the basic idea behind the all the elements when connected together to form an embedded system. And in addition to that, we had the core hardware part of the embedded system, which includes input to take all the inputs required so that a specific job can be completed by the embedded system, right? We have an output on the other side using which you can generate the required outputs, but the processing takes place because of the elements they are present in between the input and output. So in order to work, you need a power. So power supply, some hardware to have a control and do the arithmetics, right, and provide timing, etc. So processor will do that, processor or controller will do that, timer to generate timing signals, interrupts to be handled by using a circuit related to interrupt. You need communication to be happening between IO devices, so you use parallel ports and serial ports, data handling, data saving, data retrieving through the memory, and an ASIC, application specific circuit, right, which will be the specific hardware required to do the to design and to implement the hardware, the embedded system. Okay, so this part we completed, right? Now let's go to the different embedded hardware. We'll see how they are going to be implemented, what are their characteristics. Okay, right. Right. So the first thing is right, microprocessor. Right. Here it's not the general processor we are talking about. It may be a microprocessor that is specifically designed for embedded system. Okay, now the basic feature of a embedded microprocessor is that it's going to have a central processing unit to perform the arithmetic and logical operation. It's in general, right? General purpose design and operation. But we can use this to design an embedded system. Okay, so the basic characteristics we can write here are: access point uh, has a central processing unit, that is CPU, and it performs arithmetic and logical operations. Right, now if you want to look at its merit, the first merit, it could be a general purpose design, right? In the sense, you can use it for any type of specific application. Any type of application can be designed. You can run any app over this. So that is general purpose design and operation. And because it is designed in general, it has a very high processing power in terms of the number of instruction per second or per cycle, or also the total capability of execution of instructions. So I'll simply write the high data processing. Data processing rate, it can also be called as a power, high data processing power. Right, now when it comes to its, maybe you can consider it as a demerit, okay, but still it's a characteristic of microprocessor. Right, a microprocessor will not have uh, any IO port available with that. Okay, so which means you are supposed to interface, you design according to your design. You have to get a different circuit, maybe from a different vendor. You need to interface that port with this device, then only this device can communicate with any other device. Like, there is no built-in USB port. Okay, USB port needs to be purchased, needs to be connected with this, interfaced, right? Write a program so that the microprocessor understands how the communication happens through the USB, then only it's going to work. So that's something like a disadvantage, but it is a feature of the any microprocessor you take. So we'll write it doesn't contain a built-in IO port. IO port is absent. And so now the microprocessor can perform any work. Okay, anything you ask, any program you write, it's going to work on that, it's going to be implemented, right? But the problem is that, like the previous point, it doesn't have an IO, it doesn't have, right, a lot of memory also needs to be, if you want to have enough memory, you need to interface the memory. So it's basically, the microprocessor can be considered as a dependent unit. It depends on several other things, right? Because it is general, right? The manufacturer doesn't know where it is going to be implemented, right? The manufacturer will not give every other peripherals with this. It's only one chip will come, you need to interface. Okay, so that's a problem with this, right? So I'm going to call this as, it is a dependent unit, indicating that its operation basically depends on several other points, right? That's why it depends upon many other devices which needs to be implemented in order to incorporate its efficient working. All right, so that's something like maybe we can consider it as a disadvantage, right? So general feature of a microprocessor is like this. Now we go for another component of embedded system that we are going to call it as a microcontroller. Right. Now you see that this is something like it's an updated version of the microprocessor, right? Where we will find out several uh, hardwares, several features that are not present in microprocessor. It's already connected and it's well built for a inside a microcontroller when it comes to a microcontroller. Right. Now we can write it is a self-contained unit, indicating that it contains most of the general hardwares required to execute a function, okay, a hardware function. All right. In the sense, it normally has some of the features such as interrupt controllers, timers, ADC, DAC, all these specific hardwares are present inside the controller, which are not present in the microprocessor. Okay, right. So we can write it doesn't require external interfacing of, say, ADC, DAC, digital analog converter. Uh, we can write interrupt controllers, timers, etc. So normally you don't see these specific features on a microprocessor, right? That's actually a good thing about this. Now, since you have many components integrated inside a microcontroller, this is the order or uh, how much integration you perform in terms of the circuit components, right? In this circuit, right, it is very high. So we can call this as highly integrated chip, or it's an integrated circuit IC. Okay, so now uh, because you have multiple components integrated inside this chip, right, depending upon your application, right, you may select few of them to work at a given point of time. It indicates that whichever components you are not using, you should have a feature to turn it off, right, so that you can save some power, right? Unnecessarily, if you turn on any of the components, it means you are wasting the power, right? So always microcontrollers have power saving features which are not present inside a microprocessor. Okay, so this is another merit or advantage which we can consider, right? So we can write this has many power saving features. Okay, right. But now if you want to look at the other side, maybe we can consider it as a demerit. Then normally the microcontrollers are designed for some specific tasks. In the sense, it's supposed to do a limited job. So as the requirement is limited, the instructions are also limited. Because instructions are limited, it can process lesser amount of data, right, in a given amount of time. So the power of processing data is less compared to the microprocessor. So we can write lower data processing power, or you can actually call it as a capability. It's actually compared to the microprocessor. Okay, so after the microcontroller, now we go for another very specific device, and this component of embedded system is called as the third type of processor. This is called as a digital signal processor. Okay, now there are some applications, embedded applications, which require very high data processing capabilities. It's not just data reading, data manipulation, and the data producing the output, right? In addition to this, it is supposed to perform very fast computational efficiency, right? Very fast computational speed to be achieved. So it includes all the arithmetic operations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, shifting operations. So a particular processor which needs to process the digital format of data, right? Maybe uh, supporting various data structures such as the floating point, etc. Right? It has to be, it should be able to process the data very fast, right? Whenever you collect an image, right, that image needs to be modified and uh, saved very fast. So most of the time this job is not possible for a microprocessor or a microcontroller. So that actually makes it to design a very fast processor. We call it as a digital signal processor. So now we'll write, so this kind of processors are designed for performance. So what do you mean by the performance? Performance means high speed, computational uh, efficiency. So why we call it as efficiency? Because it's not that the device is capable of doing an operation, right? The result should be, right, uh, of the specified accuracy, right? I may require uh, the answer of any addition process, addition, subtraction, or any process to be accurate up to 4 decimal place, right? If you want such a requirement, right, to be fulfilled by this device, it should be able to produce that. Then only it is efficient, right? You require 4 decimal places, but the device gives only 2 decimal places. The other 2 decimal places are wrong, means it has less efficiency. So it should be able to perform the operation as fast as possible. That's why it is high speed, and it should be able to give accurate result. So that's the very basic requirement of a digital signal processor. Okay, so digital data handling, right? It should be able to handle the digital data, right, at the input and the output. At input and the output. Okay, then it should be able to perform faster addition, subtraction, multiplication, shifting, etc. So there should be the instructions which are capable to be executed in a less amount of time, right? That's the ultimate goal here. All right, now this is actually basically the fastest, right, compared to the microprocessor or the microcontroller, right? So normally, right, they are going to be used in real-time data processing. This is one of the very important feature. Real-time data processing is the important feature of the digital signal processor. All right, now it has another feature, right? So how you make the device to work very fast, right? What makes the difference between the digital signal processor and a microprocessor? So when it comes to the digital signal processor, it performs the processing of any signal based on the stored program memory. In the sense, you actually have to store the data in a specific format, then only it will be able to process it very faster. Okay, maybe it's a floating point, right? It expects everything to be in the floating point so that you can execute the function program instructions faster. So that type of requirement is what is called as stored program memory. That's one important feature of the DSP, right? So we'll write the signal processing is done based on the stored program memory. See, this point can be considered as a disadvantage as well, right? You cannot write a general code, right? It has to be very specific. You want program execution faster. For that, you need to compensate it by writing very appropriate code according to the requirement of the DSP which you are using. Okay, can be considered it as a demerit as well. Okay, okay, then let's go to the next one. Next component of embedded system which we are going to discuss is application specific integrated circuit, ASIC. So as the name suggests, the first point which we can write here is this is always designed to perform specific task. Okay, perform a specific task, or you can actually call it as any specific application. Right, since this is very specific, we can understand that the hardware requirements will be minimal according to that specific implementation. So we can write it always consumes lesser area, right? Consumes lesser area compared to the other components which we discussed already. So microprocessor, microcontroller, DSP will take larger space compared to the space taken by the circuit required for ASIC, right? So this means you are going to design this whole system based on ASIC easily compared to others. So you can write easier system design. It's easier, which means since it is easier, you need less resources. So less resource in the sense you invest less, correct? So reduces the system development cost. Reduces the development cost. In the sense we are talking about the embedded system, the overall cost of the embedded system can be reduced if you use a ASIC compared to the other components. Okay, now normally what happens whenever a company manufactures an embedded system, they use ASIC most of the time. Then it becomes something like a proprietary product in the sense uh, others will not come to know about what they are using, right? What type of circuities, right? What are the various components used inside that? So maybe unlike a microprocessor or a microcontroller, the ASIC's specifications may not be available for the end user or the one who is going to purchase the product, right? So that's why maybe this can be a demerit as well, right? We'll just like okay, we'll mention it like it's a proprietary product. Proprietary. It's a proprietary product. All right. Then the next component is okay. I think we covered the major things here, and right. The next one is called as a single purpose processor. Okay, when it comes to a single purpose processor, uh, we are going to use a single purpose processor with another processor which will work like a main processor. You have a main processor which is basically responsible for everything. In order to share the workload of a main processor, we use a separate processor, right? That is what is called as a co-processor, right? Normally that will be a single purpose processor. So the second processor which we use doesn't take the workload of controlling the embedded system. It's not responsible for generating the timing. It is not responsible for the input output operations or any other sort. It is connected to a main processor. Main processor assigns some jobs, right? Whenever the main processor is feeling like okay, I'm not able to handle this workload, it shares its extra workload to a separate processor which is connected to that processor, right? That is what is called as the single purpose processor, or a uh, it's also called as a co-processor. Okay, right. So single purpose processor will write this is also called a co-processor in embedded systems. Right. This is basically connected as auxiliary processing unit, auxiliary processing unit to the main processor, right? Now you see the application. It's something like we have a GPU in our computer or the laptops. You see that GPU is having a specific purpose of processing the graphics related data, right? So graphics related data, whenever the processor gets some job related to processing maybe a game, right, which normally it cannot handle because it has many other things to run, such as operating system, right, or any other data handling like copying, moving term data, etc. Whenever it is doing so, right, processing the graphics, which requires a lot of memory, is not possible by that. So what it does, it shares that job information with this coprocessor, which is a graphic processor. Right, graphic processor will never say never do the copying job or moving job, etc. It will perform only maybe playing a movie is fine. Okay, playing a movie is fine, playing a game is fine. So everything related to the graphics will be handled by the GPU, graphical processing unit, which is a coprocessor. All right, so I'll give an example here itself. So the example is a graphics processor, we can call it as a GPU, graphical processing unit, is used to manage and it also boosts video or graphics performance, such as you want to play a movie, you want to play game, you want to edit video, you want to edit some editing software which you are going to run, right, etc., will be done by a specific coprocessor called GPU. Now that GPU will also have specific units, like it has its own memory. Okay, it cannot ask the main CPU to share its memory, right? That actually brings the performance to a lower level if they share the common memory. So what they do, the GPU will have its own specific memory, like what the processor has a RAM. GPU will have its own specific amount of memory. It also will have a separate port for the connection. It also will have a peripheral interface, etc. Okay, so this is one example, right, of this. Now in another format, a single processor will be used in the embedded system, that is called as a pixel processor. Okay, this pixel processor is, as the name suggests, it is used in digital camera. Okay, because digital camera will have its own embedded processor, that its response is just to take a picture and save it. But when it comes to the display part of that, it needs another uh, coprocessor in order to improve the performance. All right, so how this is going to be used? So this is used in digital camera to display the images on its screen. Okay, the camera will have a screen to plot or display the image you captured on the screen. You will have a separate processor which is a coprocessor. Its job is just to show the image which you captured. Okay, then we have some other processor coming up in the embedded systems which are coprocessors. It's called as a coder or decoder. DEC, coder or decoder, right? It is actually a circuit which encodes input and decodes the encoded information. Okay, so this is performing encoding or decoding operations. All right, so like this we have many applications coming up which every specific embedded system, right, can incorporate in addition to the main processor to increase its overall performance. Okay, now let's go to the difference. One important question comes, that is the difference between microcontroller and a microprocessor. Microcontroller and processor. Okay, now fine. Point number one is the basic circuit of a microcontroller contains, right? It's a single chip having or containing the CPU, ROM, RAM, all the IO ports, IO required IO support, and also the timers, ADC, DAC. It's a single chip containing everything. Okay, when it comes to the microprocessor, the CPU is only present. CPU is single chip. CPU is a single chip and chips of, right? You mean RAM is a separate chip. Okay, the ROM is a separate chip. You see the number of separate circuits required to build a microprocessor circuit is it's going to increase now. So RAM, ROM, IO, timer is different circuit. You need to purchase separately. The ADC, DSP, right? And separate chips of needs to be connected separately to the CPU. All right, now each circuit has its own advantage and disadvantage. We'll come to the second point in that. So since it is already built in, the circuit has the RAM, ROM, IO ports, etc. They are fixed, right? Because it's already manufactured inside a given chip, right? So we can write that as fixed amount of RAM, ROM, etc. But when it comes to the microprocessor, it's not fixed, correct? Because you are going to interface it separately. So that can be considered as an advantage over here. Whoever is the user, like a designer, can decide the amount of RAM, ROM. Designer can select the amount of RAM or ROM. Right. The next point is, so we already have discussed about this. The microprocessor can actually have has the capability to process more data, whereas microcontroller may not have that much amount data handling capabilities. Okay, so that will be our point number 3. Less data, this is handling or processing power, higher data processing power. So whereas the power consumption, power required to operate, is less for the microcontroller, and the same thing is very high for the microprocessors. We can write this is lower power consumption. So here it's going to consume more power, so high power consumption. Okay, now coming to what we have not discussed, right? The instructions or instruction sets of a microcontroller is basically it's going to focus on controlling something and lower level, in the sense bit level operations, right? You have a data, you modify the data at the bit level, right? You shift the bits, you make addition subtraction at bit level. That's what is the important feature, how a microcontroller handles data. Okay, so that point. So here the instruction sets focus on the first thing is control and uh, its bit level operations. When it comes to the microprocessor, normally the instruction sets are focusing on processing uh, intensive operations. How do you process uh, complex operations, right? They are going to be concentrating more on that. So here we write the instruction sets focus upon uh, the execution of intensive or complex operations. The next comparison point, whenever it comes to the microcontroller, right, they are uh, going to have they are going to process smaller data in size. Okay, we'll write smaller data representation, right? In bracket I'll write uh, 4 bits or 8 bits, maybe even 16-bit do exist over there, but it's only limited till there. Whereas when it comes to the processor, right, they use bigger data representation. So can be maybe 32 bits, 64 bits, etc. Right. Then let's go to the next one. There is what is called as a pipeline. So pipeline is nothing but you try to uh, execute the instructions step by step. When one instruction is being fetched, maybe the previous instruction is being decoded, okay, and the instruction previous to that is actually getting executed. So how the pipeline is done, we'll compare now. So in case of a microcontroller, the pipelining is called as a single cycle two-stage pipeline. Okay, so it uses single cycle uh, two-stage pipeline. It's the simplest form of the pipeline. You have only two stages or something. Okay, whereas when it comes to the microprocessor, the pipeline architecture will be like 6 stages, 7 stages, 10 stages, and so on. We call it as a deeper pipelining with 7 or more stages. Okay, then the comparison is that uh, in microcontroller we are going to find many types of bit handling instructions, whereas when it comes to a microprocessor, it will be less. Okay, lesser types of instructions. So let's write one more. This is used the design of specific dedicated systems. Okay, whereas we know that the microprocessor will be general purpose. Okay, so this is used for designing purpose digital computers, computing systems. Okay, so differentiate microcontroller and microprocessors. Now, there is another comparison that is commonly asked. It's the difference between the RISC and the CISC processors. Okay, RISC is a reduced instruction set. CISC is a complex instruction set. All right, so our next comparison will be that. RISC on one side, CISC on the other side. Okay, first point we'll just expand them, right? This is reduced instruction set computer. On the other side, this CISC stands for complex instruction set computer. Now, the basic feature of RISC is that the execution time is very less for a given instruction. Whereas, since the instruction sets are complex, the hardware might take longer time to decode that, because of which the execution time is very high. So this is very high compared to the RISC. So name says that reduced instructions, right? Reduced instruction indicates that the total number of instructions are less compared to the CISC. So we'll write lesser number of instructions. Whereas when it comes to the CISC, you are going to have more number of instructions. So since the RISC is going to have reduced number of instructions, right, the decoding will take lesser time. That's why it is very fast. So we'll mention that here. Decoding of the instructions is simple. right? On the other side, the decoding of the instructions is actually pretty complex. All right. Next comparison. Risk will be designed in such a way that it can use its internal memory for all the calculation. It does not require any external memory for the calculation purpose. So it doesn't require any external memory for calculations. But when it comes to the CISC, it's very complex. It takes something like more memory for the execution. So you have to interface external memory for calculation. Requires the uh, external memory for calculations, right? Which actually means that the risk has enough memory in the sense the memory of a processor will be called as registers, right? The risk has enough number of registers available, right? Whereas the CISC does not have sufficient number of registers. That's what is its ultimate meaning. So we'll write that as a separate point, right? Here you have larger number of registers. Okay, here what you have is lesser number of registers. So for a program, when we write a program, we need more number of registers if you want to store huge amount of data, right? Whenever that is not provided, then you need to give external support. Risk requires external, risk does not require. Okay, here in risk, the pipelining implementation is easier, easier pipelining. On the other side, you have the complex pipeline. Okay, we will see another concept immediately after this. Uh, but before that, we need to use the word in the comparison. So the risk actually supports only what is called as a Harvard architecture. Only Harvard architecture is supported. When it comes to CISC, right? Basically, the CISC architecture supports both. There are two types of architectures, Harvard and the von Neumann architectures. Both are supported, right? And let's find another difference. That is, let's see some applications. So used in video processing, telecommunication, uh, image processing, whereas the CISC is normally used in something like security systems, maybe you use it in home automation, etc.
That's all for the day. Feel free to contact if you have any doubts related to any topics in engineering. We can also help you in solving your assignments, projects, and many more. Thanks for watching. Good day.